one thing is, before you came to Miami, you were up in Rhode Island. You covered the Patriots, Bill Belichick. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Mike McDaniel is not anything like Bill Belichick in any way, shape, or form at all. Safe guess. What's that?
I would say, maybe you get that like savant historian kind of like, maybe they share a little bit of that same brain makeup. That's probably the only similar.
That's probably the only thing right there. And I would love to be a fly to hear what they're talking about before week 1 when they meet at midfield prior to the game. What that conversation is going to be like. I think it's going to. I have no idea what that conversation would be. But I guess my question is, what are your first impressions of Mike McDaniel? Haven't seen nothing like him before in a head coaching role. Seems like an interesting guy. We'll see how it translates. But what are your first impressions?
Yeah, he's just been a blast to cover. I mean, that there's really no other way to say it. And it's funny because you talk about all these big name players that are on this team, right? Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill. Mike McDaniel is the face of this franchise right now. And I think that's really kind of interesting and unique to the situation. Obviously, if Tua has a great year, I think that can shift very quickly. But, I think Mike has just been really transparent with the media. He gives us very long, thoughtful, thought out questions. But let me also just say this, because I think this can get lost as well. And I said this on the radio the other day and someone kind of agreed with me, but he isn't as transparent as you think. When he decides to be a little bit tight-lipped, he's very funny and likable and witty and sarcastic about it, that it's really hard to just be mad that he didn't answer your question. So there's a lot of kind of personality traits about him that are just so likable. It's going to be really hard to criticize him because he's just very self-deprecating. He's very sarcastic and dry and funny and smart, and like the way he explains things to us. So he's just been really, really fun to get to know. And he's been the same guy every day that he talks to us. I will also say this. He is 0-0 right now. And there's not really anything to criticize. Nothing's been hard yet. We are in the full-blown honeymoon phase. So listen, I'll tell you this. I covered, as you mentioned, I was in New England. I covered the Patriots. Brian Flores was one of the most liked assistants on that staff. And then he had to go be the bad guy. And there were a lot more fingers pointing at him and a lot of more people that were quick to criticize the decisions he was making. And you saw that turn very quickly. So I don't think Mike McDaniel and Brian Flores have similar personalities, but I do think that we're going to learn. There's still, like I mentioned, there's a lot to learn about Mike McDaniel to see kind of how he handles adversity this year.
Yeah, and you're so right. And we saw it this week a little bit when he was getting pressed on who's going to play this week versus the Raiders. He never answered the question, but he gave such an outstanding answer. Nobody cared by the end. It was like he said a million words. None of them answered that one question.
Yeah,
he's a master at that.
He did the same thing again today, asked again, after Tua's day yesterday, what do you think? He's like, I don't know.